الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد, inshallah we'll complete the first hadith that we started last week in this chapter of repaying the parents with kindness, Jaza'ul Walidain. And that was a hadith about from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that a person can never pay back their parents except that they find them as a slave and you set them free. So perhaps then you might be able to fulfill some of their rights. And one of the reasons why the reward of freeing a slave is so high in Islam is because when you look at a slave, then when you look at other rewards, for example, freeing a person that's in debt, so somebody owes a lot of money to someone, and you free that person from the debt, you help them, then there's a great reward in the hadith. But when it comes to freeing a slave, there's hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that that person who frees a slave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will free this person from the punishment of the hereafter. From the fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will free this person from Jahannam. Now when you speak of slaves, Islamically, the concept of slave is different than when it comes to, if you look at the traditional way. So they had slavery in here in America too, but that was different. They used to have slave trades, so they would go to perhaps some African countries and just grab a few people and bring them here and sell them in the market. So you cannot do that. Islamically, somebody can, or you can only take a slave if you're in the battlefield and somebody comes and fights against you. So then when you take them back, the prisoners of war. So how they have prisoners of war nowadays, if you capture someone, what would they do with them? They would put them in prison. So if you capture a prisoner in the battlefield, they're fighting against you. They're there to take your life, to kill you. Or if not you, then at least your soldiers. And they might have also killed people from your group of people. So when it comes to prisoners of war nowadays, the punishment for them is they put them in prison. Now when it comes to Islam, if somebody is captured in the battlefield, then you will take them with you back to your place of residence, and whoever is the Khalifa, the leader, he would decide. So perhaps they would be given to a Muslim that, okay, you can keep this person with you. So they would stay with you at your house. You have a responsibility now, you have to take care of them. And many a time, these people that were captured as prisoners of war, they would become Muslim. They would accept Islam because they would look at their master that, okay, this person, this is what their deen is about, religion about. Nowadays, how people, they revert to Islam. So similarly, in those days, people would just become Muslim just by looking at the person that they were under. And then they would set them free. Now, when it comes to Islam, one of the allegations that when it comes to this Orientalists or nowadays Islamophobes, the objection they make is Islam encourages slavery. So nowhere in the Quran does Islam say that you know it's free. You can just take a person and make them a slave. That's not how slavery works. As a matter of fact, Islam gives more rights to the slave sometimes than how our prison system gives the right to the prisoners. Because prisoners are just locked up in their cells or in the jail. But when you look at slave, at least they have that freedom. You cannot just tie them up. You cannot abuse them. You cannot abuse them. You cannot make dhulm on them. So Islamically, and then also you're encouraged that if they become Muslim, to set them free, as long as they have some skill and they can survive in the society. So you set them free. So this is what Islam, if you were to give these people a choice that are in prison, that would you be slave like how Islam, the rulings, obviously when it comes to the ruling of slavery, there are many, and we cannot go through them. If you open the book of fiqh, you'll find the rulings when it comes to slavery. And also Islam, one of the things that it advocates, it's known as mukataba. So mukataba means that a slave, he will tell the master that if I pay you a certain amount, would you set me free? Or the master would say that you can be free as long as you can pay me a certain amount. Now that person, they would have some skill, they would go and work, and they would earn some money, and they would pay the master, and that person would be free. So this is just some brief thing about slavery. Obviously nowadays, even when it comes to Islamic countries and those places, you don't have slavery as it was in those days. But if you look at our life, then it is somewhat like similar to a slave, that we're slaves of our employers. And when they tell us something, we do it. Obviously, we can change things around. It's not the same thing as being a slave, but it's similar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the best. We'll complete the next hadith. حدثنا آدم قال حدثنا شعبة قال حدثنا سعيد بن أبي بردة قال سمعت أبي يحدث أنه شهد ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما ورجل يماني يطوف بالبيت حمل أمه وراء ظهري يقول إني لها بعيرها المدلل إن أذعرت ركابها لم أذعر ثم قال يا ابن عمر أتراني جزيتها قال لا ولا بزفرة واحدة ثم طاف ابن عمر فأتى المقام فصلى ركعتين ثم قال يا ابن أبي موسى إن كل ركعتين تكفران ما أمامهما. So this hadith, Imam Bukhari, this is a very popular hadith. So this is from Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. This is one of the son of Hazrat Abu Musa al-Ashari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. His name was Abu Burda. So he says that his son Sa'id ibn Abi Burda, he says, I heard my father Abu Burda radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was the son of Abu Musa al-Ashari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So one day a person, we heard this in many lectures, that they made tawaf of the Kaaba with their mom on their back. So as a matter of fact, in this hadith, he said, أنه شهد ابن عمر رجل يماني, a person from Yemen. He came to Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he says, يطوف بالبيت, he was making tawaf of the Kaaba. So perhaps he was doing Umrah. حمل أمه وراء ظهري, he was carrying his mom on his back. So he was making tawaf not just by himself. You know, if you make tawaf just by yourself, then it's tiring, and especially if you're not used to it, if you're not fit, then it's difficult, it's treacherous. So imagine carrying someone, at least if his mother, maybe even if you say she's light, maybe 100 pounds, that's difficult. So imagine doing tawaf like this, doing the whole Hajj or Umrah in this way. And then he came and he says certain things. He says, يقول إني لها بعيرها المدلل. So he said it in a couplet, in a form of share. He said, I'm for my mother, بعيرها المدلل, like a humble camel. So camel that's under your control, it listens to you. Not a camel that has become rebellious and that doesn't obey you. So I'm like my mother, like a humble camel. Mudallal means something that's humble. That you give up. I have given myself up to my mother. She can do whatever she wants with me. And then he says, إن أذعرت رقابها لم أذعر. When it comes to the camel, if it gets frightened, what's going to happen? It's going to run away. If you have somebody perhaps attacking it, maybe an animal or something, whatever it is, if it gets scared, it'll run away. And maybe it'll overthrow the rider also. It doesn't care. But I'm not like that, he says. When it comes to my mother, I'll protect her. So this is what he said. And then he says, ثُمَّ قَالَ, so he said that I carried my mother. Now if he came from Yemen, if you look at Yemen, and if you look at the map, the shortest distance from Yemen to Mecca, if somebody was to walk, then nowadays perhaps, depending on where you come from in Yemen, it's at least 650 miles. So imagine walking 650 miles with your mom, or with another person carrying them. And if you look at perhaps other parts of Yemen, if you go to Mecca, it's at least 1,000 miles. So walking for this distance with carrying somebody, and on top of that he made Umrah, or he made Tawaf of the Kaaba. Then he came to Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, and he said that Aturani jazaytuha, do you think that I have fulfilled her rights? I have paid back her rights? So Ibn Umar, he says, La wala bi zafratin wahida. Zafra means to moan. When you're in pain and you let out that breathing, when your person moans. He said when your mother was giving, that's what it refers to, especially when a woman is in labor and giving birth to a child, then they train the person. If you have seen a woman giving birth, if you have ever seen that, then the doctors say breathe like this, do this, and this is how it becomes easier. But obviously that's perhaps the most painful thing a person can go through. And especially us as men, we have perhaps never, or we would never experience something like that. Not perhaps, but we would never experience that pain. And that's why when a woman gives birth, even during labor, or after labor, she says no more. Because of that pain, I cannot bear this. No more children. And especially if they go through some complications, if the labor is very long and if the pain is there, which is unbearable, then the only thing that you would hear is no more. And in the olden days, generally, we would hear from our parents that when they didn't have this hospital system, they would just have childbirth at home. They would just get few women, elderly from the community, and the kids would be born, the children would be born at home. Nowadays in hospital. So obviously the men perhaps they wouldn't witness this. But nowadays, if you look at the current system, they encourage the husband to be there with the wife. So you could witness the pain. Perhaps one of the reasons is you could witness the pain that she goes through. And at least you feel some sympathy that what a mother goes through, we cannot imagine that. It's extremely painful and difficult. But again, after maybe having a child in a few months, this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you hear that, mashallah, we're having another child also. So generally you hear that somebody just gave birth. After a few months, they make dua, we're having another child. And then you start making dua that, oh Allah, make this child a means of coolness for our eyes. So this is a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that despite going through that pain, the mother, she's willing to go through it again. So he said that, did I pay her back for her eyes? So he said, La wala bi zafratin wahida. All that moans, not even one you have paid her back. That hardship that she went through when she was giving birth to you. And then the next part of the hadith is Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he made tawaf, and this person he left. ثم طاف ابن عمر فأتى المقام. He came to the maqam Ibrahim. فصلى ركعتين, and he offered 2 rakat. This is a different topic. He offered 2 rakats of prayer, and he told Ibn Abi Musa. He said, قال يا ابن أبي موسى, the son of Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu ta'ala anhu, إن كل ركعتين تكفران ما أمامهما. That when you offer 2 rakats of prayer here, then your previous sins are forgiven. Now coming back to the topic at hand about making tawaf or making umrah or hajj with the mother. Similar incidents happen also with, and similar hadith have been narrated from Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that a person made hajj, not just umrah. Now imagine making the entire hajj, going to all the places, Mina, Muzdalifah, and also making hajj with carrying a person. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said similar thing also, that you haven't paid her back. And then he said something. He said that when she was taking care of you, when you were a child and you were helpless, then that was for a different reason. She was taking care of you because she wanted you to grow up and have a bright future. That this my child, he can't do anything. When she was feeding you, she was maybe changing your diaper, she was looking after you. She was doing it for a different reason. That this my child, I have to take care of him for the 5-6 years. And after that even, he's still a child, always needs their mother and the love of the mother and the affection of the mother. But when they get older, they become independent from the things that perhaps they needed when they were young and when they were infant. So when she was taking care of you in your infancy, that was for a different reason. She would be feeding you, and when the doctor says something, she would always get worried. When you would have fever, she would become worried that I need to take care of she would stay awake the whole night. But when you were taking care, she was taking care of you because my child is gonna grow up and they're gonna have a bright future. I want them to be successful. When you're taking care of them, it's for a different reason. That is my dad, my mom, they're old now. They have maybe a few years to live, and then they'll be gone. You're just taking care of them and you're waiting for the last breath to take. That they'll die soon, and then that's it. And when you serve them, it's different. When we're growing up, we have demands. We tell the dad, we tell the mom that, hey, buy me this, or do this for me, cook for me this. And they'll go out of the way to take care of that. Sometimes even it's late night, and you tell the dad, hey, get me this. Or you tell the mom that, can you do this for me? And they'll do that. But now once we're old, and once the child gets older, and the parents are old, and even if you give them something, they wouldn't want that from you. They don't want anything. Even if you give them money, that here's some money, if you need, no, I don't need it. You be happy. They want to see you be successful. So it's a different mindset. That when we were growing, when your mom or your dad was taking care of you when you were an infant, it was for a different reason. When we're taking care of them, it's also for a different reason. So this is again a beautiful hadith from Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. if another great lesson is if our parents are alive, then we should serve them as much as possible. And if they are gone, then the least we could do is pray for them, make dua for them. Because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, because we're our investment for our parents, and we should be like an investment for our parents. Because now they're gone and they have left us behind. So at least we could benefit them. Because other people, they won't benefit them. Because it's not their responsibility. It's our responsibility as a child to benefit our parents. Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ told us. That إِذَا مَاتَ رَجُلٌ, when a person dies, now they can't do anything. They cannot pray, they cannot give sadaqah. Because even if they wanted to, but they can't, because they're dead. They cannot do any other rituals of deen, except for three things. Three things can still benefit them. Number one is يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ. So number one is they left some knowledge behind. Maybe they taught somebody something good. Maybe how to pray, how to recite the Quran. Or perhaps even they gave something to someone. Maybe Quran to someone, and that person reads that Quran. They give a book to someone, and that person benefits from that book. So this person will be rewarded for that. But I'm sure a lot of us perhaps, we perhaps have never taught somebody. Or even if we did, don't we want more? When it comes to worldly things, person is always looking for different ways. That okay, how are you making money? Can you also tell me? How can I make more money? How can I progress more in the worldly things? So there is never enough when it comes to the hereafter also. We always want more reward, just as we want more things of this dunya. So number two is sadaqatun jariyah. Sadaqatun jariyah. So perhaps you made a well that people can benefit from. Or perhaps you made a masjid where people can come and pray. Or you donated for some charity where it continues. Continuously you get reward for that. So that will benefit you. But when it comes to that also, there is only very little that we could do. How much sadaqah do we give? Perhaps not every day we give something. Maybe once a year, or sometimes few now and then. The third thing the Prophet ﷺ said, رَجُلٌ waladun salih, as a pious child. So as a pious child, this is something that as long as a child is alive, they can send you that reward. So we can do something for our parents every single day, just making dua for them. Perhaps some sadaqah we can give on their behalf. That, oh Allah, my parents are gone, you reward them for the good that I have done. So perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy on them. Now, when one of the scholars, when someone would come and ask them that how do I know if I'm pious? How do I know that I'm a pious person? So he said one of the signs to know that you're a pious person is when you make dua for your parents. One of the signs, because the Prophet ﷺ said that in the hadith, that a pious child will make dua for their parents. So one of the signs and one of the indications that you have piety in you is that a person makes dua for their parents. So we should also make it a habit that whatever we could do for our parents, some good that we could do, make dua for them, pray for them, we should do that as much as possible. And one of the benefits of that is when we do that, our children will learn from that. Our children will see the love that we have for our parents, and they would also have that similar love, if not more also for us. Because if they don't see us doing that, then they'll be like, okay, it doesn't matter. Right? Our perhaps the grandparents are gone, and life just goes on. So we have to be a good role model and example for our kids, and also for perhaps if many of us, we have grandchildren, we can also show them. Because our grandchildren, they perhaps have never seen our parents. And perhaps they don't even know that. They don't even know who they were. So at least we can show them and they can learn something from us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to serve our parents. And those of us whose parents have left this world, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them in the hereafter and elevate their status in the hereafter. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us with our families in Jannatul Firdaus in the hereafter.